How's it rockin', Dween Nation? This is the Dween Sports Podcast. We're about to get underway. But before we do, we'd love if you could like, comment, subscribe, or share. We are posting weekly sports content, and we want to build up the brand that is Dween Sports. Thank you all, and enjoy.
Now, today we're going to be taking a look at the ESPN Joe Lunardi bracketology to help us pick through this prediction this week. Let's start with the play-in games, what I think is going to happen here. I do think Southern's going to pull off the victory against Bucknell. I think that Quinnipiac is going to win there over SIUE. San Diego State and Ohio State would be a really, really solid matchup. Ohio State's been really bipolar on the court this year, but I think Ohio State would win that game. And then OU and Xavier, I think OU has really hit their stride, and they would win here to get themselves firmly in the group of 64. Now let's move to the South region. Auburn, the number one overall seed, even though they've lost the last two games, which I just discussed. Auburn against Southern, where I think Auburn would win there. Memphis versus West Virginia. West Virginia has been playing solidly as of the last couple of weeks. Now, if you've been watching, I haven't been a big supporter of West Virginia this season, but Memphis is a team that's also been kind of struggling. So I'm going to go with West Virginia there. Now we move down. Oregon versus Liberty. I'm going to go with the Oregon Ducks, 5/12. So we've had one upset with West Virginia, but no big upsets yet. Clemson and Lipscomb. I got to watch a good chunk of the Clemson game today against Virginia Tech, and although Virginia Tech's not a tournament team, Clemson really looked dangerous in this game. I think they're really built to make a good run this season, so I have Clemson over Lipscomb. UCLA and Drake. UCLA, I don't know. I don't love them. Drake, I do love them. So we're going to have Drake, obviously barring, hopefully they win their conference tournament, which is happening over the course of this week. So I'm going to go with Drake, though, over UCLA, 11/6. Kentucky and Chattanooga. Obviously, if you've been paying attention, Kentucky is a team that is shorthanded. One of their best players is out for the season, so I don't think they're long for a long tournament run. But in the first round here over Chattanooga, Kentucky will win. Now we got Marquette and Baylor. Baylor's a team that has not had a very pretty season, as is Marquette. Marquette is a team that has lost twice this week. Obviously, St. John's is a top 6, top 7 team in this country. But UConn, also a team that's been struggling, they lost to them as well. Do I think Baylor will get the better of Marquette here? I do not. I think Marquette would win 7/10 to move on to the next round. Then we got Michigan State over Central Connecticut. Central Connecticut is one of the better 15 seeds in this tournament, but I'm not going to have them over Michigan State. So I'm going with the Spartans. Now, let's move even closer on Auburn versus West Virginia. I don't think there would be much of a contest here. I go with the Auburn Tigers. Oregon and Clemson. Give me the Clemson Tigers to move on. That it will be a really interesting matchup in the Sweet 16, Auburn and Clemson. Next, Drake versus Kentucky. This game is a slow team in Drake versus a very fast-paced team in Kentucky. But give me Drake to move on to the next round, and they will face the winner of Marquette and Michigan State. And I think this is another easy prediction. Give me the Michigan State Spartans. Next, Auburn versus Clemson. This game right here could be a line where I could see an upset, and I'm going to go with it. I'm going to go with the Clemson Tigers over Auburn. Auburn is really always a team that loses and gets upset in this tournament. And although this is by far the best team they've had, I know they lost the last two games, and I think this could start something where obviously they win, their first two games versus Southern and against West Virginia. But I think that they will go down here to the Clemson Tigers. Then we have Drake versus Michigan State. And I think Drake's season will end here with Michigan State moving on to get us a Clemson versus Michigan State game. And which team's going to the Final Four? Give me the Clemson Tigers. I think they're playing their best basketball right now, and they move on. Now let's move to the East. Duke versus Quinnipiac. Give me Duke. UConn and Vanderbilt. UConn, man, this year's been a really tough year. Obviously, they're back-to-back national champions. Do they win their first round matchup, or are they gonna lose their defense to their to their title in round one. Vanderbilt has shown us time and time again that they really can't be trusted. They've had some really high highs where I think if they're playing at their best, they will beat UConn for sure. And they're in the SEC, which has been the most tough conference that we've had this season. But they've lost their last two games. Wow, this is a really tough pick here, but I'm going to go with Vanderbilt over UConn. I just think that Vanderbilt's had the weight of the season, have had some really strong tests that I think will set them up good here to knock out the defending champs. Now, Arizona versus Ohio State. Give me Arizona. Purdue and High Point. Give me High Point to upset Purdue. This will be the biggest upset I've had thus far. I think High Point's got some serious offensive skills, and they're going to be dangerous to a team like Purdue, which is really 50-50. Purdue just lost to Illinois. Now, I know Illinois is on a good run as of the last week and a half. Obviously they lost by near 40 to Duke a handful of weeks ago. But they're really playing well now. They did beat Purdue, and Purdue's continuing to be a team that's back and forth. So I give me a High Point. Michigan and VCU. Give me VCU. This is another upset here. Michigan's a team that really hasn't impressed me. I'm curious to see. I am recording this before their game against the Michigan State Spartans. It's the last big game that we have for the NCAA regular season. Michigan is heading into Michigan State. So we'll see how that plays out. And if Michigan's able to win that, maybe my mind can be swayed. But as of right now, I'm going with the VCU Rams. Then we got Iowa State and Northern Colorado. This one's not close. Give me the Cyclones. BYU and Georgia. This would be one of the most exciting games in the first round. But give me BYU. They're playing better than just about any team in the NCAA. So I'll go with the Cougars there. Tennessee and South Alabama. Give me the Volunteers. Let's jump back up to Duke versus Vanderbilt, where I will have the Duke Blue Devils win. Arizona versus High Point. Give me the Wildcats. Give me Arizona to move on to the next round. Now we got VCU and Iowa State. VCU does not want to meet Iowa State here in the round of 32, so I'm going with the Cyclones. It was a good short run, good upset for the VCU team, but they're not going to move on. Then we got ourselves BYU and Tennessee, where I'm going to go with BYU to upset the Volunteers and continue to roll this, over this last, month now. They've been on fire as a team. They believe they won 8 straight games, so they're killing it as a unit. Now we have Duke versus Arizona, where I'm going to take the Duke Blue Devils to move on. Then we have, Iowa State versus BYU. 2 Big Ten teams where we actually just saw them play this past week, and BYU won on the road in overtime. So give me BYU. So we're going to have ourselves BYU and Duke, where I will have Duke win that game, unfortunately, to move, but they will be moving on to the Final Four. So we have locked in the South Final Four team, which is Clemson. We've locked in the East Final Four team, which is Duke. Let's move down to the West and to the Midwest. We'll start with the West in Florida over Norfolk State. Yes, that's not going to be much of a discussion there. Gonzaga, New Mexico. New Mexico, I just don't think they're going to do enough to get over the Zags. The Zags are always round one winners. Even though this has been one of their worst seasons, they're still top 10 in the net. So they're killing it. So I'll have Gonzaga move on there. Missouri and McNeese. Missouri was a team that was lightning hot in February until the last handful of games where they have lost 3 straight. Not great for Missouri, but I think they will handle McNeese here in the first round. Maryland and Yale. Man, Yale, I really would hate them to draw this matchup. If they drew maybe Wisconsin, or if they drew, let me look up here a little bit. If they drew Purdue, I would hands down have Yale. But the fact that this has been the best Yale season we've seen in a long time. They're undefeated in conference play. Do they have enough to beat Maryland? Maryland's been a really strong team. I'm going with Maryland. Sorry, Yale fans. Sorry, upset-driven March Madness pickers. Yale is destined to possibly have an upset depending on who they play. Hopefully they don't land Maryland. I'm going with the Terps. Illinois versus UC San Diego. If you told me this a week ago, I would have had hands down Illinois. But the way they looked makes me have to really rethink this one. because UC San Diego is a really solid team this year. I'm going to go with UC San Diego, though. Illinois, I've seen good from you. I've seen really bad, and the fact that I've seen really bad, I'm not going to go with the Illini. Give me UC San Diego. Texas A&M and Utah Valley. Give me the Aggies. Texas A&M will win there. That Auburn game, I think, is really going to spark a solid run from the Aggies. I was worried as a personal fan, obviously being an A&M a guy myself. But the win over Auburn, I saw things that I hadn't seen just about all season. And then LSU today, they started out slow, but they had a really bounce back performance at the beginning of the second half and really cruised through the rest of the game. So I'll go with the Aggies. Ole Miss and Utah State. Utah State, I don't love them as a team. I think Ole Miss is another team as well, though, that's really streaky. They have a big win against Tennessee. Then they have a really tough game against Florida, but they don't show that life that I wanted to see from them. But I'm still going to go with the Rebels over Utah State. Texas Tech and Bryant, give me the Red Raiders there. Florida, Gonzaga. What do I have? I have Florida winning, stopping Gonzaga, a team that's normally in the Sweet 16 and further. But Florida's just too powerful of a team. Then Missouri versus Maryland. With Missouri's struggles, I'm going to go with Maryland here to move on to the next round. UC San Diego and Texas A&M. This game would be a really tough one. I think this would be a battle. And wow, what would I go here? Would I go the big upset with UC San Diego? Do I really think that is that a possibility here for A&M? Can A&M's been playing in really tough games. The problem is most of their games are really close. So if I wish I had more information, is if UC San Diego really has a bunch of knockdown shooters, that is what's going to put them over the top. But I do not think it's going to happen. Give me the Aggies to move on there to the next round. Then we got Texas Tech versus Ole Miss. This one I think would be a hands down Texas Tech victory. Now, Florida and Maryland. Give me Florida. Florida's one of my favorite teams in this tournament. Obviously, they're a 1 seed. But honestly, they might be the most underrated 1 seed in the tournament. I think they're firing on all cylinders. Then we got A&M versus Texas Tech. These two teams met earlier in the season, and Texas A&M got the better of it. Give me the Aggies to move on here to give us Florida and A&M, which unfortunately for the Aggies is their worst nightmare. This is honestly I think the one team A&M would like to face the least out of any team in the tournament. Against Auburn, yeah, obviously they just beat them. Even Duke, I think Florida is a team that they do better than what A&M does at the best of it. You know, A&M's known for their offensive rebounding. Florida can combat that with really great players in the front court, Alex Condon, to name one. But I think that would be a really tough matchup for A&M. Give me Florida to move on and establish themselves as the third Final Four team. Then we move to the Midwest. The Cougars, Houston Cougars versus Omaha. Give me Houston. Unfortunately, we're not going to see any banging of trash cans in the tournaments. After March 19th or March 20th is when the tournament officially starts. So give me Houston, Mississippi State, and Creighton. This would be a really phenomenal game to watch. I love watching 8-9 games. They always bring. Obviously, it's because they're most of the time really even teams. But give me Creighton to get the victory here. Mississippi State is just a team that we've seen some highs, we've seen some lows. Creighton's been solidly consistent. Give me Creighton. St. Mary's versus I have OU. This game, I would love to see this game. Wow, St. Mary's and OU. The way OU is playing gives me interested. But I'm gonna go with St. Mary's to get a victory here. Wisconsin and Akron, give me Wisconsin, even though Wisconsin today lost a really damning performance. They lost at home versus Penn State, a team that's not in the tournament whatsoever. That's an ugly loss for Wisconsin. They lost by, I believe, double digits as well. So that was not a great way to end their regular season. They're still a really solid team, but they're not going to like how that affects their. I mean, they could drop here to a 4. Hopefully, they don't drop to a 5. But next, Louisville, Indiana. Give me Indiana. They showed some real guts today. I got to watch the back half of their game versus Ohio State, and I like them here to win this game. St. John's and Townsend. Give me St. John's. A great overtime victory over Marquette today on the road. That only builds you for March, baby, and that's a great one for St. John's. Kansas and Arkansas. Come on, I think that's a gimme. Gimme Arkansas here to get the victory. I know Kansas, to their credit, did get a really solid win today. Um, to to really to really confuse fans is what they're doing. They beat Arizona, which maybe could be more of a testament to that Arizona maybe is not cut out for a long run. I know I had them going to, I believe, the Sweet 16, but Arizona is a team that actually has been struggling a bit. Kansas won today, but I don't think they win here. Give me Arkansas. Alabama and Robert Morris. Come on, Alabama with the victory here, and they just beat Auburn on the road. Um, Even before that game, this is a clear Alabama win here. Then we got Houston and Creighton. Give me Houston. St. Mary's in Wisconsin would be a really exciting watch. I'm gonna go with St. Mary's. Give me St. Mary's here to move on to the next round. Indiana and St. John's. Give me St. John's. Arkansas and Alabama. Wow, this game would be a exciting one to watch. I would really love to see this game. Obviously, these teams have gone, head to head in the SEC. Is this a game that Calipari can go into? Obviously, they come off a win against Kansas. Arkansas is a team that's really building up. They lost by 4 to Alabama this year when they played each other. Do I want to do that? Wow, this is a tough one. Do I want to pull that trigger? I'm going to. You know what? I'm going to. I'm really excited with what Arkansas is putting on the board. Obviously a team that's mostly built with transfers, with a new head coach. Obviously, Calipari's got a historic pedigree, but a new coach in the system. It's taken a while for them to kind of integrate together and build together, but I think they're really hitting their stride. Give me Arkansas over the number 2 Alabama. Then we got ourselves Houston and St. Mary's, where I will go the Houston Cougars. And then we got St. John's and Arkansas, where I'm going to go with Arkansas to win here. St. John's, the only thing that scares me is they're not a great shooting team. They have just about everything else, though, with them. Give me Arkansas, though, a team that I think is going to hit their stride at this point in the tournament. And gives us an Arkansas versus Houston game where I think they will lose here to the Cougars to establish Houston as the last Final Four team. So that sets up Clemson and Clemson and Florida versus Duke and Houston. And I will go with Duke to beat Houston, and I will go with Florida to beat Clemson. And that gives us a blue and green against blue and Duke. And give me Florida. I'm back on the Florida train. When I started these predictions, I was on the Florida train, and I'm back on it. I had a couple weeks going Duke. I had a couple weeks going Auburn, but I really think that Florida is the most complete team. They have a great front court, a great back court. They can shoot. They can rebound. They do everything. They put away games. So give me Florida as my champion for this predictions. But anyways, thank you guys for listening. If you have any comments, questions, as we're getting close to March Madness, there's a lot to discuss. If you want me to do some conference tournament discussions, I will. But thank you all for listening. And like, comment, subscribe, all those good things to keep building up Doing Sports, to keep building up this page, to help get more eyeballs on it, but also just help us out. I mean, we want to make this a full-time gig when we can, and we're still growing and getting off the ground. But anyways, thank you guys for listening. And like my brother Jano always says, peace.